bodies of 43 victims of the latest installment of Boko Haram violence were yesterday buried in Borno State, another notorious landmark in a country where such happenings are fast becoming the rule rather than the exception. The sheer savagery of this set of statement killings by Boko Haram has been sending chills down the spines of many Nigerians. Why farmers who work hard night and day to feed their countrymen and women? What kind of ripple effects is this pervasive violence likely to have on food security and investor confidence in the economy? Has the government given up on the war against terror? What new approach can be deployed to the battlefield? Joining us now to look at all of these is Dr. Kabir Adamu, a security and intelligence executive and founder, Beacon Consulting Nigeria. Welcome to the program. Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you.
Well, Dr. Adamu, it's good to see you again. Well, you must have listened to Tundun's introduction very carefully. 43 people dead, farmers. The president says what happened is senseless and it is insane. Some other Nigerians say it is barbaric, it is horrific. But again, what we are confronted with is the challenge of insecurity in Nigeria. What should government do? Because we can't continue like this. From Lake Chad to Maiduguri, to Kano, to Sokoto, to Benue, to Ondo State, and everywhere else. If it is not banditry, it is terrorism. And yet government continues to say, oh, they are doing their very best. Terrorism is technically degraded. There is Operation Lafi Adole, Operation Safe Corridor. But we don't see the impact in terms of the constitutional responsibility of government to protect lives and property. Where is the omission, and what else needs to be done?
Thank you, Dr. Abati. A very, sad period for Nigeria. First off, I would like to extend my condolences to the people of Borno and, in fact, Nigerians as a whole. Some of those 43 persons are itinerant farmers, seasonal farmers, who move from northwest Nigeria to Borno and take advantage of the requirement for labor during the harvest period. They get paid to do that, and unfortunately, they found their dead as a result of that. So that it's quite unfortunate, and it shows clearly, just like you've indicated, the deplorable state of security in the country. Now, what should government do that it's currently not doing? A lot is being done by the government. We need to take knowledge of that. The military component, and then at the state level, since Governor Zulum came to power, he has introduced several state-level initiatives. The one that is relevant to our discussion is his attempt to recruit what he called paratroopers, with the specific assignment to protect farmers. In other words, he recognized that farmers were vulnerable and they could be attacked. And so he went out, recruiting these paratroopers, engaging the military and the civil defense to train these farmers. But then, unfortunately, the result of all of this is not being seen. People are still being killed. So what is the reason? Why are we seeing these deaths in spite of the federal and state level initiatives? Number one, that I would say is absence of accountability. I believe that wherever there are breaches like this that lead to death or destruction of property, someone somewhere should be held accountable. And that means in this instance, for instance, who is responsible for that area of operation? If it's the military or the police or the DS, whoever it is, that person should be held accountable, and it should have been done yesterday. We should have had, it's reported in, unconfirmed sources that the military commander in charge of that particular area has been relieved or has been redeployed. Now, whether that is true or not, my point is accountability, number one. Number two, the attempt to win the hearts and minds of those residents of the Northeast. If you recall, not too long ago, in fact, 3 days ago, the Global Terrorism Index was published. And one of the underlying revelation of that index is the fact that terrorists strive where they are able to exercise influence. Now, how are they able to exercise influence? they're able to send out dastardly messages like the one they did 3 days ago in Zabarmari, kill farmers and send a message that if you spy for the military, we'll kill you. So telling other local governments as well that you cannot support the military initiative. In other words, support us or keep quiet when we do our things. If you don't keep quiet, we'll kill you. So clearly, the counter-terrorism initiative by the Nigerian government has not been able to protect people to the extent that they would feel confident enough to provide information to the security forces. So how do you ensure protection to all the residents of that location, and by doing so to win their hearts and minds? If you want to bring this war to an end, that's the first thing you should do. It's not about boots on ground, it's about winning their hearts and minds, and the best way to do that is to provide protection. So that's number two. Very important, we must provide protection. We have created super camps. The super camps have succeeded in limiting the ability of the terrorist groups to overrun our military bases, but they have now left vulnerabilities that are being exploited by these bad guys. And so the next stage is we need to block these vulnerabilities through, and this is the number third point, coordination. We have 27 ministries, departments, and agencies involved in security in the country, from the military ones, about 4 or 5 of them, to the intelligence one, DIA, NIA, DSS, and then to the several civil military departments, such as the customs, the immigration. Now, what I have found in my review of all of these 27 is that they are operating in silos. They are not the coordination that we expect to see to produce the results that we all want, which is the protection of lives and property, is not adequate enough. So that's really, really key. Coordination of these 27 departments together, the delineation of their functions. I would argue here that, as an example, why have we separated the civil defense from the police when the work of the civil defense is the work of the police? Why do we have the road safety when the road safety is actually carrying out a policing function? In fact, we can argue further. If you go to other crimes, even the immigration is a unit in the police. We all have them, but they are operating in silos. In fact, it's even more worrisome that they are headed by different ministries. So most of the civil security departments are headed, for instance, by the Ministry of Interior, when the police ministry is supervising the police. So clearly making coordination very difficult. These are all long-term issues that need to be addressed. Now, the fourth one, which is critical and also very important, is the equipment disposal of all the security organizations. No matter how good you are, if you do not communicate in a secure manner and in a timely manner to allow adequate and speedy response to security issues, then the effectiveness of your security function would be zero. In this instance, farmers went out to farm. How come nobody detected? I run a consultancy, and I know that 5 kilometers outside every city center, and I make bold to say this, almost all the city centers, including Maiduguri, the moment you are 5 kilometers outside Maiduguri, the vulnerability increases. In this instance, farmers went out and passed the night outside their location where the vulnerability was high. So somebody somewhere should have known this and should have called them to order and say, look, you are risking your life. Yes, the governor said it's a choice between poverty and security, and they decided, chose to go out to farm, as a requirement to feed their families. But then their life is even more important. So someone should have noticed this and brought it to their attention that, look, you are risking your life. And one of two things, either bring them back to where they are safe, or now make additional deployments in that location to protect them. Now, that didn't happen, and it takes us back to my first point, accountability. Somebody dropped the ball, and that person or whoever it is should be responsibility. So these are some of the points that I would say at this stage with regards to why what the government needs to do better.
Well, thank you for that overview. So I'd like to take it one by one. I'll start with what you said about accountability. How far up the chain do you think that should go? Because the calls for sacking of service chiefs have now reached a deafening crescendo. What do you think of that?
The issue of the service chiefs is at the discretion of Mr. President. If he appointed them, he has constitutionally, he's got the authority to do that, and it would be at his beck and call to either change them or remove them. But it is clear that the responsibility, whether right or wrong, lies with him. And so if he leaves them, then and we're seeing this kind of failure, then of course it will trace back to him. But having said this, in my remark, I mentioned that there are 27 ministries, departments, and agencies. Now, even at the most liberal interpretation of this 27, the military is just 5 out of this 27. And so that's even if you include the DIA, which is more or less an intelligence agency. So the point I'm trying to make is, no matter how effective 5 are, if the other 22 are not effective, frankly, you will not see any result. You don't, I mean, even if they're superheroes, you appoint as the service chiefs. If the other 22 are not effective, then we're not going to see any meaningful change. Yes, because of our history, the military leadership that we've had, it has become a norm, more or less, to see the military involved in internal security operations. But that is not what should be in a democratic setting. This other 22, the civil security departments, are supposed to head the civil security arrangements. And so instead of laying emphasis on changing the leadership of the military, I would say let's lay emphasis on improving the quality of performance, the efficiency, the effectiveness of this other 22. Border protection, as an example, one of the major issues that affect us in Nigeria is the proliferation of weapons, and it's a function of the porosity of our borders. Now, is that the military responsibility? Clearly, no. It is more a responsibility of, I would say, the customs and to an extent the immigration. And then, of course, you bring in the police. So instead of laying emphasis on the service chiefs, I think we should lay emphasis on the entire 27. And in doing that, seek and demand for the introduction of monitoring and evaluation measures within the security agency that would allow us to see their performance as well as lack of performance. We should have metrics that would show clearly improvement or lack of improvement in the performance of the security agencies. And so where we see a lack of performance, as a country, we should be able to say clearly that the police, as an example, or the immigration, you are not meeting the key performance indicators that we have laid out for you at the beginning of the year. It is unfortunate that down the road, 60 years into our independence, we do not have monitoring and evaluation capabilities within the security sector as a whole. So that would be more or less my focus, and not just the service chiefs.
Right. So there's this recurring decimal or recurring refrain, anyone you want to take, about complicity. Anytime a major attack happened, we always hear, oh, there was complicity, there was complicity. This one is another one. We've heard the refrain about complicity. The fact that the security forces were aware, they knew about it, they could have prevented it and all of that. Why do we keep having that refrain? And how can we have everybody on board as regards this? And a lot of people have had that drawn-out debate that the security problem in this country, has been that of complicity, a major challenge. How do we stop that? How do we get everybody on board?
Rufai, my first point is accountability, and I would say with all sense of responsibility that ensuring accountability will reduce this. If as a head, we have Operation Lafia Dole, and we've seen several commanders of Operation Lafia Dole changed. Sometimes we're not told why they are changed. The most common, statement would be that it's the routine deployment. But I would want to see a situation where balls are dropped like this and people die, that it is a clear message sent to every commander that you cannot be commanding a theater and then this type of dastardly incidents happen, and no one is held responsible. And that goes all the way from the theater commander up to the whoever is in charge of that theater, and of course that particular service chief, in this case the army. So that for me would reduce this complicity that we're talking about. If these things happen and no one is held accountable, then unfortunately it opens the avenue for the kind of complicity. Of course, there is the allegation, and I underline this allegation of the political economy of the funding of an insurgency. and the diverse perspective that there is corruption inherent in that political economy, which says that is why a certain segment of the military want the insurgency to continue. I would be very, very hesitant to sort of believe that perspective. But the fact that this type of things happen and no one is held accountable, no clear, accountability strategy by the military or even the government would unfortunately allow this type of conspiracy theory to continue. So the answer to your question is accountability. It must be shown clearly that certain persons are held responsible when things like this happen.
Well, thank you very much, Dr. Adamu, for all those points about accountability, protection, coordination, and equipment at the disposal of the security agencies. Thank you very much indeed.